Unrelated, but someone has to fix our public transportation system because commuting to Mega Mall is hell. So these will be my quick reviews for the 3 out of the 5 entries that I got to watch at this year's MMFF New Wave Festival. Those will be Tandem, Toto, and Ari, My Life with a King. Now, I wasn't able to watch all 5 like I wanted to because Christmas shopping happened and commuting to and from Ortigas is ridiculous. But what I did instead is that I referred to Philbert D's reviews on clickthecity.com, and I decided to watch the top 3 movies that he rated out of the 5. You should definitely check out Philbert's reviews. I don't agree with him on everything, but he is a very good writer. And I thought this crop of movies this year was enjoyable. Like, I think I enjoyed these movies more than I enjoyed the ones from last year. And it's nice that all 3 of these movies are really unique actually in their approaches, and I hope we get more stuff like this in the future. So first of all, let's talk about Tandem. This is directed by King Palisok, written by Zig Marasigan, and stars Nico Antonio, J.M. De Guzman, Elora Españo, and Rochelle Pangilinan. And this is pretty much a story about these 2 brothers, played by Nico Antonio and J.M. De Guzman, who are a criminal tandem. Like, they steal bags and whatnot from the side of the road, and then they get onto an escape bike and make their escape. And first of all, this is just an awesome looking movie and an awesome sounding one as well, with this really nice pulsating musical score. And I think they managed to achieve that noir vibe that they were going for, so good job to them. And the movie really shines during its heist sequences because they're kinetic, they're super fun to watch, they're really simple in execution, and they're not repetitive. Like, you see a bunch of heist sequences go down in this movie, but every single time there's something new that happens, or there's another thing that you notice. And the central characters are very interesting as well. There's lots of hints there about their history together, about their history with their respective romantic interests, and they really just have a really interesting, complex relationship as brothers. There are decent performances all around in this movie, but I have to single out J.M. De Guzman. He is great in this movie. He plays the younger brother. At first I was kind of hesitant, like, he doesn't even look younger than Nico Antonio in my opinion, but he really sold it because his character is very brash and immature. He gets into a lot of fights, but at the end of the day you can tell he's completely loyal to his older brother. And I think King Palisok also nails that seedy tone for this kind of world that he creates. He nails that tone perfectly. But I did have quite a few issues with Tandem. For one, there's the stuff that happens in between the heists just isn't very interesting. It's a lot of people talking, and like the conversations they have don't really deepen character or plot in any way. And these scenes just take way too long in my opinion. Ultimately, there's just not a lot explored with the writing. I mean, there are seeds of interesting characterization in these characters, but the script never really goes into these things, and the story itself doesn't really go anywhere. I mean, the main point of conflict is that the 2 brothers kind of get into some trouble with these 2 corrupt cops, but we never get into this whole subplot about this the police chief kind of busting his own corrupt officers. We never really get to see like the psychology of these brothers as well. And there's quite a bit of exposition here in this movie that's done through characters watching TV, and I feel like they were just kind of rushing through production, so they had to do that. And while I love Nico Antonio and he was there at the screening, which is really cool, like, I just feel like he sagged a bit from time to time. Like, there are moments when he's supposed to, be staring someone down, or he's supposed to, be really emoting with his face, and he doesn't quite get to that point. Like, he's good in other scenes, but in certain scenes, not that effective. So Tandem is just an okay movie in my opinion. It's kind of disappointing with what I was expecting from it, but there is definitely still stuff to enjoy in it. Next up, we have Toto. This is directed by John Paul Su, written by him and Donald Martin, and stars Sid Lucero, Blake Boyd, Thao Reyes, and Mara Lopez. And Toto is the story of this guy named Toto, played by Sid Lucero, who works at this hotel as sort of like a bellboy or a room service guy, and his big dream is to go to the United States and have a better life there, to have the American dream. And Toto is also a really good sounding and looking movie. It has a really nice, fun soundtrack, as well as really playful cinematography. Like, there are certain scenes where the focus will keep shifting from one character to another and kind of achieves like a comedic effect. And it's a great production design as well. Most of this movie takes place either in a hotel or at the US Embassy, and you really get a feel for both these places. You really feel like they're in these real places. And for the most part, Toto is a comedy, and when it hits with the comedy, it really, really hits. There are certain moments here that are just laugh out loud funny, especially a certain scene with a ring, which I won't spoil, but it's really, really funny. And there is lots of fun dialogue all throughout this movie, and lots of quirky characters. But really, the person who carries this entire movie on his shoulders is Sid Lucero. He is one of the best Filipino actors working today, and he makes this character live and breathe completely convincingly. But everyone in the cast does do a good job. Thao Reyes plays Toto's best friend. He's really good. Mara Lopez plays Toto's romantic interest, and she's really good. Blake Boyd, I was surprised to find, was really, really great as well. You know, when we have foreigners in Filipino films, sometimes they're written like too exaggerated, but I think Blake Boyd's character was just right here. And what I liked about John Paul Su's direction here is that he's not afraid to be weird. Like, he's really, really offbeat with some of his scenes here, but it does work. But I also did have quite a few problems with Toto. For one, it's just way too long. It's almost 2 hours long, and that's ridiculous. Because it spends most of its running time kind of meandering a lot from, you know, it kind of reiterates the same character moments or plot points. But the biggest thing I didn't really enjoy about Toto is that its tone shifts really melodramatically by the end of the movie, and I don't like that shift in tone, not because it became sadder, but because it just lost its charm, you know, it just stopped being the movie that I was enjoying up to that point. Especially at the certain section of the movie where they go to Tacloban, and you know, I get it, like my heart goes out to them, but you know, the way it's placed in the movie is kind of awkward. Also, I have an issue with the character of Toto himself, because when he's with his friends and other Filipinos, like he's a pretty intelligent guy, but when he talks to foreigners, suddenly I feel like he kind of dumbs down and becomes a lot more naive, and I just found that inconsistent. I mean, like, Sid Lucero still plays the character well, it's just the way the character's written is a bit inconsistent. And the story itself, for me, doesn't really commit to the weirdness, especially that's evident in John Paul Su's direction, because, like, especially during the melodramatic parts, it's just way too much. And the way certain character relationships and dilemmas are resolved isn't very convincing. It's very rushed, especially like the big solution to the main conflict in this movie. I feel like this kind of comes out of nowhere. I don't know why it didn't come out earlier. All in all, I do think Toto is just an okay movie as well. Again, there are things to still like about it, especially Sid Lucero, but there are other things that don't really work for me. And finally, we have Ari, My Life with a King, directed by Carlo Catu, written by Robbie Tantinco, and starring Ronaldo Martin, Francisco Ginto, Cecil Yumol, and Chloe Carpio. And very simply, this movie is set in Pampanga, and it's about this young, I think, high school kid getting to know this old poet. And through that, we kind of get a portrait of Kapampangan poetry and just life in Pampanga in general, and it's really, really cool. Number one, this movie is surprisingly really gorgeous. It uses a 4:3 aspect ratio, which means it's pretty much just a square, but it uses this aspect ratio so well. The framing is just gorgeous, and the sound as well is surprisingly very clean and very polished. And the musical score in this movie as well, oh my god, it's amazing. Like, it's just the right blend of kind of melancholy but with like dignity. Ari is a very slow-paced movie, but I think that pace is perfect for this kind of story. We really just get to sit down with these characters and, you know, just spend time with them, and it's the greatest thing. And the editing in this movie as well can get sublime at times. There's a certain scene where it shows the king of the poets, this old guy, kind of reciting a poem in front of all these people, and then it cuts to them and they're not listening. It cuts to the mayor and he's getting into his car while the poet's like poem is being recited in the background, and it just said so much about this character and the state of art and culture in this time. And like I said, this is very simply a story about a kid getting to know an old poet, and it works so well because it's just so simple like this, because the characters are so extremely warm. You love these characters almost immediately, and they're so rich and they're so complex as well, but always like in a kind of a simple way, if that makes any sense. And I love the fact that there's actually good poetry in this movie. I hate it when movies are like, you know, we're gonna have a poet character, and then when they her side poetry, it's actually not that good. But here, a lot of the poetry is really fun, really accessible, like, which is great to see. And what Carlo Cato, the director, does here is that he never over sentimentalizes the stuff that's happening, and he never puts the king of poetry on a pedestal. You know, like this movie isn't trying to send a message that, you know, we don't appreciate native poetry and that we should, you know, definitely deem it as a higher art form or anything. It delivers its message very simply, and we really just get to live with these characters for a couple of hours. My only issues with this movie are that there's certain transitions, I guess, that are a little abrupt, and some parts near the end kind of get a little bumpy, like I don't know why they're really there. And pretty much all these actors are really good, especially Ronaldo Martin and Francisco Quinto. Chloe Carpio has certain moments where her delivery can be a bit stilted, although other times she's very, very charming. I guess my biggest issue with this movie is that near the end there's a really important moment that happens that I feel like could have used a bit less detachment, because I feel like the way they approached the scene was like, okay, this is an emotional scene, but we don't want to sentimentalize it, so let's stay as far away from it as possible. But at the same time, I had trouble connecting with this scene because we were just so far away from it emotionally. But I actually thought Ari, My Life with the King was a pretty good movie. It really took me by surprise. I really hope it gets, you know, wider theatrical run or more festival appearances later on. So that's it for me for the MMFF New Wave this year. This was a really decent bunch of movies, and I know I won't get this video out on time, so you won't really be able to watch these movies before the MMFF. But Ari is definitely worth a watch if it gets released again down the line. Please do check it out. And I really hope that more of us get to support this New Wave section, because while they're not stellar movies just yet, in my opinion, like, they really have a lot of imagination in them, and I think, you know, they definitely deserve more viewers, so hopefully we get more audience members in those seats next year. Alright, so those are my thoughts on the MMFF New Wave 2015. Well, 3 out of 5. Have you guys seen them? What do you think about them? Whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment. Let's have a conversation.